Today I'm going to show you how you can set up Home Assistant environment into our Virtualbox. Why we are using a Virtualbox? Well, a Virtualbox can be installed in any operating system like Windows, Linux, or a Mac OS system. So the advantage is that we can all start from the same basic VDI file, so a kind of hard disk that is prepared already with a Home Assistant basic version, which then can be set up during the installation. So how can we get started? Let me share my screen. So here you see that on the course I have already set a few files. You'll have the Getting Started guide on the website, and actually this I will be using for this installation procedure. We also have the basic settings that I used on my system. So I'm sure that this should work also on your system with the basic settings of the Virtualbox. So let's get started. So I go to the installation link. What you see is that you can install on Home Assistant on different operating systems, like a Windows, Mac OS, or a Linux. So I do recommend using a Virtualbox because that makes it much easier to install, and also then we will all have the same system. For later, if you want to install a Home Assistant in your real home environment, what I then suggest is that you use either a Raspberry Pi, where you can install this system. It's a little device that can contain also the Home Assistant, or you can even just buy some operating systems that Home Assistants that are already installed, so you can buy these systems too. But as now we will be installing it on Windows, so I'm using the Windows setup here. First, what we need to do is actually we download the Virtualbox. So we just click on the file. It will download the file. It's about 400 megabytes, and if you extract it, it will be just below 1 gigabyte. So that makes it a very lightweight system to install. Let's give it a few seconds. Well, by now it's downloaded. We can also check our downloads folder. So we see that it's actually downloaded. What we already will do is actually unzip it, so you can extract all and extract the file. So now we have our files in downloads. There is a folder House OVA has been created, and we have our VDI file. Now what I do suggest is that you place this file, or you copy this file to a separate folder. So what I'll do, I cut it here, and I go to my Documents folder, and here I have a Virtualboxes folder. If not, you can create it. And in my Virtualboxes, I place this file. So that makes it later much easier to find it. So documents, virtual boxes. Let's remember that. You can close these. Now, in the installation, as you can see here, we will have to create a virtual machine. And this virtual machine will then be configured with this VDI hard drive. So we start our Virtualbox. So I assume that you already have set up your Virtualbox. Virtualbox. Oracle VM Virtualbox. So this opens our system. As you can see, I don't have any machine installed yet. So what I will now do, I just click on a new one. And here we have to select a name. So I can call it Home Assistant, for instance. I don't select a ISO file because we will use a VDI file, and this VDI file is already foreseen by a operating system. So we have to select the right operating system, and this one is a Linux. Linux. Up like this, and we can now click on next. Here we need to install or select how much memory that we want. So the RAM memory we want to use is, in my case, I'm using 4 gigabytes. And processors, the minimum that you need is actually, as you can see here, two CPUs. And we have a storage of 32 gigabytes. They suggest only 2 gigabytes of RAM, but it's better that you make it a little bit more. In this case, we also need to enable the AFI. Why? Because it's a special operating system that needs to be activated. So we click on next. In this case, we don't want to create a new virtual hard drive now. We are using instead our already downloaded VDI file. In this case, we just select it and we can click here to edit. As we have already copied it to the folder, virtual boxes, so we can now navigate to folder virtual boxes, and we can select our file. We do open, and you see that now it has been added. So we have to choose it. In this case, 32 gigabytes of hard drive has been selected, and we can click on next. We see now that the basics are already set up, so we can click on finish. Don't start it yet, we just have to set up our network. So in this case, as you can see on the environment here, they say that a Wi-Fi or Wi-Fi is not the best way to use because it might not work in certain cases. So this is the case in office environment like EHB. There you will not be able to use a bridge adapter. But in my case, in my home and probably also in your home, it will work just in Wi-Fi. If not, just use a cable wire and then it will certainly work. So we go to settings of our selected Home Assistant, and here in the network section we can select bridged adapter. You just have to verify if you have multiple network adapters that you select the right one. So as I said, Now I'm using Wi-Fi. I don't have a physical cable connected to this PC, so I will be using my Wi-Fi. You can just check the advanced settings also, and you see that he selected automatically a MAC address and so on. So network is selected. We can click on OK. Just to make sure everything is okay, what we can now do is go again over the settings and check them all. This seems okay, as you can compare these with the PDF that I placed on the Canvas website. On the advanced, there is nothing special. Just ignore all these. In settings, though, we need to make sure the memory is selected, the AFI is on, the rest we can leave. Display. What I also suggest is adding a little bit more memory. So in this case, for instance, I'm going to use 64 megabytes. It might not be needed, so you can lower it later in case it blocks. The storage, we have to verify that our hard drive is well selected. It all seems okay. Audio, we don't need for now. Network settings, we have our adapter 1 and adapter 2 and 3 are not set. So everything should be okay, and we can click safely on Start. So this will boot up our VM. And if everything goes well, it should start immediately. Now, in this case, we see that it doesn't work, so let me check why. I can close it, go off the machine. So on the website, I read that you can probably just recreate the Virtualbox environment with the same hard drive. So that's what I'm going to do. I just removed the hard drive and then I will start all over again. So I'm doing new. I'm giving it a new name, Home Assistant or just graduate. This stays the same version. I'm going to have this one. Oh, sorry, the 64 version. Next one, doing exactly the same, taking two CPUs and enabling AFI. Using an existent hard drive, adding it. This documents virtual boxes, and hopefully it's still here. I open it and I choose it. I go next, finish. Then just adapt the network sessions again to bridged. Okay, and just let's try again. Start. Indeed, it boots up. It's a very strange issue. So if you have the same issue, just reinstall it, and then with the same VDI, and it should work. So let's give it a time. Okay, the supervisor is starting. And it's launched. Okay, that's great. We have also an IP address. So what I suggest is you serve to the Home Assistant local IP, so it will automatically launch your Home Assistant in the browser. So let us do that. First, we are going to close some screens. We open a new screen, and here we can then have our Home Assistant loaded. So as I said, Home Assistant local, that's the IP. And now you see that it's actually preparing the Home Assistant. So this can take up to 20 minutes, they say. Now, I tried it already several times, and sometimes it can take whole longer. So let it wait for even 1 hour, maybe even more. Just do something else and come back when it's all finished. So don't lose the hope if it's taking too long. Okay, so if it's taking a very long time, what you can also do is just click on the middle here, and then you will see some extra information. So you'll see that it's still running. If there is an issue, you'll see it also here. So just keep on waiting. Voila, there we are. The system has been set up and it has been connected. So now we can start with the onboarding of the Home Assistant. To make some conventions, I suggest that we name it or give it all the same username and password. So in this case, I will have a username administrator. This is the username, also to log in. And a password, what I do, I take AI Labo 123 dollar. So as you see, AI Labo 123 dollar. 123 dollar. And now we can create an account. Now we can set our home system, our place where we live. So we need to move this one. So we have actually to move it a bit near where we live. It's here in Brussels. And it's somewhere in Anderlecht. To say that it's let's just set it here from now. Country is Belgium. Language we select is English. Time zone, it's important that we have a correct time zone because otherwise it might be that there are some syncing issues. So what we'll do, we scroll down until +1 and we go here. I've seen here Brussels. Elevation, it's interesting to know that Brussels is about 50 meters. Unit system is Celsius and kilometers, and the currency is in euro. So that's it for these settings. Continue. And now it asks to send information and so on. We just leave it like this and we click on next. We now see that our Home Assistant has already found some IDs or some sensors. In this case, I have an access point, I have a sensor, and I have a Google Cast, and more even. Now what we'll now do is just click on finish, and he will automatically add some of them. In your situation, there might be none, so you will have a button, just click finish, and it will then set your system. So in this case, now you see we are well started. What I'll do now to set up a system, because I don't want this dining room, so I can just delete it. Oops. So then I can click here on edit dashboard, control, and I can just click here, delete card, and delete card. We will also delete this card, and we will delete this card. So now we have an empty dashboard. Now what's interesting now is what we can do is actually we can add some items.